Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Samantha's Beauty Confessions. Today, I am talking to Krista Bartik, who you may know on Instagram as Color by Chris. And we are going to try something different this week. We are going to split this episode into two parts. So today, you will hear half of it, and then next week, you will hear the other half. We're going to see how this works, how y'all like it. So definitely let me know. But Krista is just such a light. She is somebody that I met at the Behind the Chair show, I believe, a couple of years ago. And I was naturally drawn to her and just really connected with her there. And we've just stayed in touch over the years. And I think that she has so much to offer. She is still super young. She has not been in the industry that long, but in the time that she has been in the industry, she has been so successful. She has done so many things and is just someone to look up to no matter who you are or where you are in your career. And I'm excited for you to hear everything that she has to share on today's episode as well as next week's. Now, full transparency, I just got off of the interview with Krista, so I don't exactly know what will be included in today's episode versus next week, but we talk a lot about her story, how she got into the industry, what made her choose to be a hairstylist. We talk about how she got into education. She taught with a very well known company, and now she does her own independent educating. She goes over the imposter syndrome that came with that, how she made the decision to do that. We talk social media. She actually went through a her Instagram page actually got hacked a couple of months ago, and she talks about that, things she wishes she would have done differently to avoid it, and all of that type of stuff. We talk about how her education is different from all the other educators out there, what you can expect in her classes, and the exciting things that she has coming up. And yeah, I am just excited for y'all to hear everything she has to say. So I will stop ranting and let's welcome Krista to the podcast. Hi, Krista. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We've had some little behind breaking the fourth wall moment. We've had some technical difficulties, but it wouldn't be a podcast without them.
Nope.
But I'm super excited to talk to you today and
I'm so excited to be here.
just get to know, a little more of your story. If you want to start just by telling everyone who you are, where you are, what you do, and all of that.
Yeah, so my name is Krista Bartik. I am 25-year-old hairstylist and educator. I'm located in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm originally from the north and moved down to the south. I've kind of split my lifetime up equally in both places. So I like to say I have like a northern root with a little bit of like a southern charm, which basically means I can say something really mean and get away with it with a smile. So it works out. But I've been doing hair for 5 years now, in the industry for six, which is so crazy to think about. I feel like when I started in this industry, I started off hot. I started off chasing my dream, no matter how young I was. So I like to live by that while I stay behind the chair, take clients, but also travel and teach to other hairdressers around the world, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you've done just in that short time, you've done so much. Like, I mean, I feel like I've been in the industry my whole life basically, but I think I've been in it like 11 years, but 5 or 6 years, that's super fast. And you've done so much again that, you know, I'm excited to dive deeper into. But did you always know that you wanted to do hair, or was that kind of like a decision later on?
It's really funny. I had absolutely no desire to do hair. And I think a lot of hairdressers have had a similar story to mine where they kind of get introduced to the industry, find it on accident. I found it because I wanted to become a makeup artist. I had a dream of like doing makeup, taking photos. I just loved the beauty industry as a whole, but
Mhm.
I was under the impression that beauty professionals didn't make enough for a living. And I was so terrified of going into the industry. But finally, I was like, screw it, I'm going for it. I went to cosmetology school at Aveda Institute. I specifically went for a cosmetology license instead of an esthetician license for the
Mhm.
reason being that if I were to change my mind, funny, I did because here we
Smart.
are.
That's a smart decision.
Smart move. If I were to change my mind, I'd have a little bit more flexibility on where that was going to lead me. So I went for cosmetology, and I remember on the first day of school, or first week of school, we were doing the thing where you had to take a comb and you had to draw a straight line from the center part all the way down to the center of the nape of the mannequin. I went home, I told my mom, "I will never be a hairdresser working in a salon." I was like, "That will never be me. Can't do it. Screw this. Screw a middle part. Screw a perfect line. Who needs straight lines anyways?" Like, it was the most stressful thing ever. But throughout school, I actually found myself falling in love with balayage and foils, and it was complicated, it was challenging, and I love to be challenged. If I am not uncomfortable, I'm not growing. If I'm not growing, then I'm really, really uncomfortable. So it requires me to kind of keep pushing forward. And I loved everything about the industry. So after being in school and falling in love with that, I really found a passion for teaching people as well. In school, I would just kind of do things. People would ask me questions, and I would somehow have somewhat of an explanation there, and I really enjoyed it. So, I started behind the chair. I was 19 years old when I decided I was going to pursue hairdressing and started at a salon, and I knew I wanted to be an educator as well, but I was young in the industry, and that kind of took me a second to realize, like, okay, is this something you're going to go for? How can you go for it? But I think hair found me. I don't like to say I found hair. So at the end of the day, I think we find things with when we least expect it, and we hear that all the time. But that especially applied for me when I started in this career.
Yeah, and I totally relate to the parting on a mannequin. Like for anyone who is listening that may not do hair, like you can't get those part lines straight no matter
No,
how many times you try because it really is impossible the way it's sewn in. So I totally get that. And I too relate to the makeup side of your story because in high school used to do all my friends' makeup for prom and homecoming and all the things. And I actually thought that that's more so what I would do when I enrolled in school as well. But I do think it's so smart that you went for the Cosmo license instead of esthetician, just because there's more flexibility there.
yeah, more flexibility. And I'm so glad I did, because I would not be where I am today if I didn't do that. So it's
Hmm.
so great.
So, and then you said that you started kind of developing the love of teaching in school. But how long have you actually been like being an educator? I guess how long have you been educating?
I've been educating for 3 years now, which is so crazy to think about, because I just turned 25. That means I started educating at like 22, 21 years old. So still super, super young. But 3 years in the making. I spent the past 2 years traveling and teaching with a very well known company, Masters of Balayage. And then recently in January of 2024, I decided to take the leap into my own independent education. So I've been traveling and doing that since January, and that's been such an incredible journey, and I'm excited for it next year as well.
Yeah. So about like the independent side of it, what would
Mhm.
you say like is the biggest, I don't know, pro versus con of it? Like what were some of the fears that maybe you had when you were making that decision? And did those fears actually happen or were they just kind of that imposter syndrome? I don't know. I don't know if you have imposter syndrome, but I definitely do.
Absolutely. I think everybody has imposter syndrome. I think it's one of those things where some people do a better job of hiding it. So it's not necessarily that they're more confident or more capable of achieving goals. They just do a better job of using that as their fuel factor for kind of going for their dream.
Hmm.
I definitely fall into that category, because some people don't see the fear that I have with the decisions I make and the way I put myself out there. But I know that I fear not trying more than I fear the fear of rejection, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I want to go for it no matter what. But with some of the fears from going from working with a big company versus working on your own, it's kind of similar to a stylist in a salon working in a commission salon who is, running their business underneath somebody else. They have somebody, making rules for them, and it works. I work in a commission salon, no hate to commission
Right.
stylists, something I absolutely love. But it's similar to that, as if a commission stylist were to consider going booth rent, all that falls on you. You make your own hours, you get your own product, you're kind of in charge of everything. So the fear was being able to handle that myself and not knowing if I was actually able to pull it off. And, still sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, can I pull this off? And then next thing you know it, you're there, you're doing it. It was just like 4 weeks ago, I was stuck in Chicago. I had flight issues. I was trying to get to Iowa. End goal was Iowa. And Chicago, I got stuck in Chicago because of weather and, all the fun things. I'm sure everybody listening has some sort of story with O'Hare.
Well,
And
but
I
I
get
but I feel like flights recently have been like drastically worse. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is lately about flights, but it has been terrible.
Hmm.
So beforehand, I had somebody booking flights for me and I had somebody to respond to. Now it's like I make the decision. So I did everything possible to make it to that class and not cancel it. American Airlines lost my bag. I taught a class with no tools, no color, no workbooks. I had 2 hours of sleep in me. I got a rental car and drove 4 hours in a severe thunderstorm to make it to this class. A lot of my products that I had shipped beforehand, some of them didn't end up making it. And I still taught this class. And Silas still left feeling, inspired and ready to take it on. And I just have to remind myself that that's why I do this. That's
Hmm.
why we go for it. And that's why we push ourselves out of our comfort zone because we grow from it so, so much. It may suck in the moment. And I cried a lot of tears and I broke down incredibly in Chicago O'Hare. But at the end of the day, I made it. And I'm so glad because that gave me the knowledge and it gave me the confidence that anything that goes wrong in the future, like it can't be worse than that. And I still did a great job no matter what went wrong.
I think that is like the key message. I don't even know what we're going to say later on in this podcast, but I think that will be the key message because I 100% agree. I think that you create these scenarios in your head and you realistically want to believe that they're not going to happen, but when they do, you're like, "Oh my gosh, like you don't even know what's going on. You almost black out." But I think it's so cool that without any tools and any, products, nothing, and you were able to go with no sleep. Like that just goes to show that when you're doing things for the right reason, when you're passionate about it, that the results will come no matter what the situation is.
100%. 100%.
So, but I'm interested. Like, how did you? I'm more so interested in the no sleep factor of all of it. Like, 2 hours of sleep is it's almost like worse than just staying up all night, in my opinion.
Yes. So that was definitely one thing about me, I need sleep. If I don't get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I am an absolute mess the day after. It doesn't matter, how much I drink the night before or how much coffee I'm consuming the day after. Like if
Hmm.
I don't get my sleep, the head fog is so, so real. But it was one of those things where my adrenaline kicked in and I was just like, nope, I have to do this. I have no choice. I was absolutely exhausted, but showing up to class and, just letting the class know, hey, this is what has transpired in the past like 10 hours of my life. I'm showing up today. I may make a few mistakes. I may say something that, didn't transpire. Just work with me here. And the stylists were like, I'm just so glad you were able to make it to the class and you didn't have to cancel. So even though I didn't have my full hours of sleep, even though the bags under my eyes were so real, and even though I showed up with literally nothing of my own to teach this class, stylists were still able to take so much from it because me being there just showed more than what I was teaching. So at the end of the day, we look at our sleep and we're like, oh my God, if I don't get that, this is going to happen. And yeah, I really do prioritize that, but also knowing in a situation like that, there's nothing you can do besides keep on going.
Yeah, it's just your mindset at that point. And I think too that, you know, if you verbalize things out loud, like you said that you did, and just tell them, hey, I may be a little spaced out for a second if you ask me a question, but I will answer it. I promise. Just let me snap back into reality. I just think that that's a very powerful message. But as far as teaching goes, too, how you said that you got into it, you went to school when you were 19 and you got into it at 21, you said?
Yeah, 20 to 21 was
So
20. I started to get into it, but COVID hit. So I couldn't really do a lot of that.
okay, so were you like being such a young hairstylist? Was that intimidating at all for you, especially since you worked for, a very well-known company and were on stages with very well-known artists? I'm assuming. So, talk a little bit about like the intimidation factor and how you overcame that.
That is, I mean, that was a huge intimidating factor. Being 20 years old, 21 years old, and working for a company with a well known name, doing something that I had never done before. The only thing that I had was my passion and my love, and the company that I had worked for. Ryan, the owner of Masters of Balayage, he saw that and he believed in me for that. And so at the end of the day, when it comes to achieving your dreams, even though you may not feel qualified, you may not feel ready, you may not feel like supported by everyone, having that one person that believes in you or that one person that sees the light that you see in yourself is the only thing that got me through that, because I was teaching classes to people who had been doing hair longer than I had been alive. That is incredibly intimidating. But over time is what got me through that. So every class I showed up in, every stage I taught on, I did it, but I did it scared.
Hmm.
And doing it scared is what's going to get you through it, because eventually it doesn't become easier, it just becomes a little bit more comfortable. So getting familiar with the unknown and letting that control go, that was a really, really hard thing for me because I am a big control freak, but letting that control go and just trusting the process is exactly what got me through with where I am today. So it was a crazy, crazy start, but I'm glad I pushed through and I'm glad I had the friends supporting me. I'm glad I had, somebody who saw that in me. But because of that, I was able to blossom into who I am today.
Yeah, because you're never, at least I don't think so. I don't know if anyone ever feels 100% ready for anything.
Mhm.
I just think that, like you said earlier, if you're not learning and growing, like you don't even know how to act at that point. But it's the same with me, and I'm sure many listeners, like when you get an opportunity, you just take it and you deal with the consequences and all of the stress behind the scenes as you go. And yeah, I don't know if you wait till you're ready if you'll ever actually take that step, and then you'll look back on life and be like, I wish I would have done all of these things. um
100.
so in your classes, do you, like, I know that you probably pick your models and stuff, but you don't bring anyone with you, right? Like, it's somebody that lives wherever you're teaching.
Yep, somebody that lives wherever I'm teaching. I am completely independent. I don't bring an assistant with me at all. I typically find someone in the area that is, willing to help and willing to come and, get a free class off of, mixing color. But in my classes, I really like to focus on how to actually do hair behind the chair one on one. I know there's a lot of education out there that they work with an assistant or they work with multiple people behind the chair that's able to foil with them, root shadow with them, blow dry with them. And that's just not realistic for the everyday hairdresser. So I make it really, really important in my classes to speak to those hairdressers who aren't using an assistant, and I do double book behind the chair and I do use an assistant, but I like to make it known to stylists that you can do it without it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because finding an assistant and a good assistant that you vibe well with and that stays around and all that, that's really hard to do. So I love that. What are some other things that you do in your classes that you feel like set you apart from other educators? Because I know that, I mean, today there's endless amounts of education going on. So what would you say like sets your classes apart?
So, number one thing is I tell my story and I try and be 100% authentic through my journey, because that right there, it gives people inspiration. I'm finding nowadays hairdressers don't exactly need like a new foil technique. They don't exactly need a new placement. They're not looking for that. There's only so many placements you could do on a head. A lot of the time, people are going to these classes because they want to leave there with a new mindset. So, something I focus on in my classes that differs from other educators is not only foil placement, patterns, techniques, and formulations, but it's also how to actually apply that and move forward in your career in a different sense, whether that be communicating to your client differently or setting up your pricing a little bit differently, and just mainly teaching how stylists can fall in love with the industry again, because I find that we're so burnt out in terms of social media, we're burnt out with client expectations, and it's exhausting trying to keep up. And I think letting stylists know it's okay that, it's okay to not be on social media, it's okay to not charge $600 for a balayage, like it's okay to not be an influencer. Little things like that, I think, has stylists leaving the class feeling so much different than when they first walked in. And so that's something I focus on in my classes that I think differs from a lot of other education because it's not just about the hair.
Yeah, there is so much pressure with social media. Like obviously I love social media. It's completely changed my life, but I even find myself now like having a hard time getting on if I'm being honest because it's
Yeah.
just so draining and it's like we lose the passion that we actually all got in this industry for because we want to be the influencers and we want to do the brand deals and we want to teach and all the things we see other people doing, which is what social media is designed for. Like it sparks these endorphins and stuff in our brain and makes us want more, but we end up losing ourselves in it. Or at least I find that I did. And it sounds like you can relate.
Absolutely. I definitely lost myself and I didn't realize it until I got my account hacked back in March. And I didn't realize it until it was actually like taken away from me. Then I was like, holy crap, I've been associating so much of my life and so much of my time with this app. Why am I doing that? Why, like, it's gotten me to where I am today. And I definitely recommend people using social media if you have a dream of becoming an educator, if you have a dream of becoming an influencer or working with brands. It's brought me the connections, but I also lost a little bit of myself in there. Being so young, that was so challenging to realize because I thought I had to achieve this goal right away. I thought I had to do all these things, but I didn't want to sell myself or sell my life, sell my youth just to put myself out there on social media. So I've definitely taken a step back. I relate to you 100%. Instead of posting 4, 5 times a week, I'm posting 1 or 2 times and just saying, let it be. Like, it's not about posting, it's about the quality over quantity, is what I'm trying to focus on lately. And I think a lot of stylists are starting to relate to that. Have you noticed that with social media?
Yes. And so like this is the first time in I think 5 years, maybe 6 years I've been on that I could care less if I gain any more followers. Honestly, I really
Yeah.
could. I hate to even say this out loud, but I really mean it, so I can. But I don't even care if I lose followers. Like I really don't at this point. I feel like my journey with social media was to help me get over a bunch of these like doubts I had on my in my own head from like life, and I've done that. And so it's just kind of like now I'm trying to get back to me, and I think a lot of hairstylists are doing the same. I don't know what it is that caused that, but I think honestly just people opening up and talking about it, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I think what caused it too is social media. Everyone's like, you have to post this many times a week, you have to engage this many times, you have to do this. And all that was doing was leading a fast track to burnout, not social media success.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a second, what are we doing? Why are we doing this in this industry? Why are we putting that kind of pressures on ourselves? How can we take that apart? How can we actually use the energy that we want to put out there and put it to good use without burning ourselves out? So that's a hard thing to do.
Well, and I think too, like when I built my page, that was back in 2018, so it was easier then. And now with more people trying to do it, like, yes, these things that people are saying to do, yes, they work. I can attest to it, but you can't do that long term. I mean, you really can't. Like I think I have a very strong work ethic, a very very strong one actually. And I burnt out. So, it's like it's anyone will get to that point. It's just kind of a matter of time like you said. And I think that you being young and realizing it so much sooner than I did or than most do is just, I mean, kudos to you on that. I think that's
Thank you.
a great thing. And I think that you're proof too that you can have so much success and do all the things that light you up without feeling like you have to just be this, you know, I don't know, employee of social media, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to put it. I think too, it's like being so young, everyone will always tell me like, "Well, you're so young, you have next year. Like you have so much time." And it's like it's a little I think people mean it in like a comforting way. I don't think it comes from a bad place at all, but I don't think you necessarily need to be 10 years in your career to achieve your goals. I don't think you need to be, you know, years on years on years down the road to do something you've always wanted to do. If there's enough love and passion behind it, go for it.
Absolutely. So you said you got your account hacked. Like,
Yeah.
I just briefly, I know that there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like, I don't even know if you really know what all happened. Do you?
Um, Fully understanding, no. I have a little bit of an understanding on it. It was honestly, it was a really freak accident, and it was something that I hope nobody has to deal with because that was absolutely terrifying. After pouring like 5 years of my life into a social media platform, for it all just to be taken like that was absolutely insane. It
Did
really
you
made
did
me
you
realize.
have the Meta verified too?
I did, yeah. So I am actually no longer Meta verified because of the situation that had happened to me. People ask me all the time, would you get Meta verified again? And I would, but if you were to get Meta verified, make sure you're verified on Instagram and Facebook as well because the two are connected. The Meta verification gives you direct access with Instagram directly. However, if you do not have your account, you do not have access to them. So that's what happened to me. I had meta verification with my Instagram, but not my Facebook. So when my Instagram was taken from me, that meta verification was taken as well. So it was one of those things where I think Instagram, when they put out meta verification, they didn't quite explain how exactly that would work. We just all saw it as like a way of, oh, if I were to ever get hacked, I can get in contact with them. Or we saw it as a layer of a protection, and it is, but they didn't really explain exactly how to use that. So
Mhm.
moving forward, if I were to get verified again, it would be on Facebook and Instagram.
So to do it on Facebook, because I didn't even know that, to do it on Facebook, do you do it within that app? Is it like a different payment also each month, or
It is an additional payment. I haven't looked at the numbers exactly, but when they first came out with it, I remember it was, I think, 15.99 a month on Instagram and then a certain amount for Facebook. And then you got some sort of deal if you got the meta verification on both accounts. I think that is still the case, but you do have to link your Facebook and your Instagram together in order for that to work. But that does create a sense of I would say protection. If you were to get hacked again, they're able to access it through either account. How they access it, no idea. How they get in touch, no idea. I still, yet to this day, have to get in touch with Instagram off of what happened. I put a ticket number out there and eventually it got through after 2 weeks of being gone. But yeah, within those 2 weeks, I mean, it was like loss of revenue, not only behind the chair with getting in touch with clients. If I had cancellations I couldn't post, if I had, I had classes I couldn't market for. So that was a tremendous loss in those 2 weeks. So if there's one thing somebody takes from listening to this, don't put all your effort into one social media platform. Get on TikTok, get on Facebook, get on Pinterest, make that email list, and make sure you have contact, not just through Instagram.
yeah, an email list? That's my tip too for today is that I waited way too long to build an email list. And because again, I was just so focused on building my following on Instagram. But like now, so many creators, I mean, you had like 100,000 followers, right? Whenever you lost your page.
I think it was like 106 or 107. Like I had just hit a goal that I had been wanting to for a very long time. And then it was just gone. But
Hmm.
what did you make your email list on? Because I hear this all the time with people. They're like, make an email list or do this. But where exactly, like, what resources do you supply to somebody who's listening today?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask this to, but my email, it's through Flowdesk. So
Yes.
I'm sure like that too could have glitches. Like if that software shuts down, do you have any tips for that that maybe I don't know?
I'm setting mine up through Squarespace, I
Okay.
believe. Square or Square, one of those two. But
I mean, I also have my email, like my client emails are through Vagaro, like the booking software I use. But again, I think, like you said, making sure that you back up those emails somewhere and just back them up again and again. Like, I know it's kind of, repetitive and makes you seem like a crazy person, but like having little flash drive, what are they called? Little sticks, memory sticks.
a memory stick, yeah, a flash drive.
I have a ton of those like around my house with just photos from my phone in case my phone shuts down. Like I've just started backing everything up because of all the stuff we see that happens on social media and because of the fact that it is such a big part of my income and my job and like you said if you lose that like you miss out on I mean what if you would have never got it back? Like then what?
I ask myself that all the time, if I would start over or what I would do. And I think eventually I would start over if I never got it back. But it took me a while to get over that burnout because that sent me in like a really huge, like downward hill. Like it just went, it was like one thing after another. I also had a lot of life occurrences after that with loss of like family members, pets, and it was just a really hard time. And that was kind of the start of it. So moving forward, I would have definitely got back on my feet because knowing me, knowing my personality, something like that isn't going to knock me down.
Mhm. So how did you finally get back into it since you weren't like verified through Facebook and stuff? Did you end up having to pay to get in? Like I hear multiple stories from people.
Yeah, so I didn't pay to get in because I was refusing to do that. I am my father's daughter, true and true. He is like very, very like save, save, save. So I definitely would have not paid to get back in. But I eventually got in because when you get hacked and when you get like suspended, you can appeal the decision with a ticket, and it kind of sends your ticket into Meta verification or to Meta themselves. I think after 2 weeks, my ticket eventually got through, and then my account was able to pop back up. I was hacked with other people as well. And so we were all kind of working together. So when one account would get back, we would send a list of names to that person. Unfortunately, I was the second to last person to get the account back. So I couldn't do as much of that as well. But huge help to Katie, KTB Hair. She was nothing but like a light in this situation because she was in contact with multiple people to help me get my account back.
Mhm. Okay, so that's what you meant earlier when you said the ticket. That's how you
Yes.
did it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and
Yeah.
those tickets like I mean,
There's thousands.
yeah, and I don't know who, like you said, I don't know who really, if it's a person or a robot or what's going on back there, but I think just the power in numbers and just not giving up. I think a lot of people just give up and move on, and no telling the spiral that they go down because it is like I got locked out of my account for, I wasn't locked out, I just couldn't post for a week. And
Oh,
not
interesting.
not being able to post for a week sent me down a deep dark hole. And like you said, it was hard to go back to social media because once you step away from it and you can't do it, you're like, wow, I am brainwashed. Like, what am I doing this for? But yeah, eventually, it sucks us all back in. That's what it's made to do.
Yeah, but I'm thankful for it though because I'm back in social media and I'm back with a new perspective and I can share that in my classes. And that's like I'm thankful for the experience.
Yeah, and I think that your just your insight on the meta verification is going to, because you hear that all the time, to do it for the security purposes, but clearly it
Yeah.
it doesn't help.
Yeah. And it does if you're like verified on both,
Both.
you
Yeah,
know? So
but I'm
it's
gonna go as soon as we get off this episode. I'm gonna go set up on Facebook just in case, because that's honestly why I did it to begin with, was to be able to have
yeah.
access since I did get logged out, a few years back. All right, y'all, and that is where we're going to end today's episode of part one with Krista. As I mentioned earlier, we will be doing a part two next Monday, so make sure that you tune in to listen to that and hear everything else she has to share. And if you would please let me know in my DMs, or you can leave a review here on the podcast platform you're listening, just what you think about this part one and part two, as opposed to just one long episode. I, as always, would just love to hear your feedback. And that's what's going to help the podcast continue growing and just make sure that I am giving y'all the things y'all want, I guess. So as always, I appreciate you listening, and I'll talk to you again next Monday.